As we look to create a good environment for existing users in the marketplace to rebrand themselves in a new location, we also look at synergy between mixed uses and how they can interact well. And so when we start looking at a mixed use type thing, there's obviously the ability to go vertical, which the size of this property probably doesn't lend itself to. There's the ability to go all enclosed into one structure that has certain sectors of it that service a residential component or an office component or retail on the ground floor. There's also a kind of specialized small building pod type concept where you interconnect things with pathways, but you have a small office building with maybe a coffee shop here. You've got a few residential units with maybe a couple of live-work units on the side. You've got the ability to be flexible with the space. It's not expensive to build. You don't have to have all your tenants up front. And this is something that I think might be attractive for this particular property. I'm thinking smaller in puzzle pieces rather than thinking larger as far as one facility to service everything. And so when we think about mixing those uses together, we wonder, how do these uses interact? When we start thinking about pedestrian walkways, drivability, how to move within the site and take advantage of everything you want. If you live on the property and you also have an office there, how do you get from your home to your place of work to maybe a place to go shopping, buy clothes, or get a coffee shop, get a coffee in the afternoon, or get lunch. And so looking at how you can be interconnected and how to create efficiencies there. There are also other concerns when having multiple uses that have different times. Creating a greater security and private access for residential tenants is paramount. They should be able to access adjoining uses, but they shouldn't have multiple public access points for safety reasons. When we see office tenants that more than likely want covered and secured parking, that's similar to what a residential user would require, but they also want to get in and out in the morning and afternoon, and so you've got to provide some solutions on that end. When you start thinking about how retail tenants need short-term parking at a high ratio, and they also require delivery vehicles. How do you get those trucks in and out while not impeding on your office or residential or other users on the property? How do you look at soft spaces? These things can divide different uses, but they can also kind of bring them together. A common picnic or table type area in between office and residential blurs the line between the uses and allows some soft space that the tenants can take advantage of. And then we also look at how lighting is done. What is your signage? What are your signage materials? What do they look like? Is somebody in an apartment at 11 o'clock at night going to be screaming at the property manager because a restaurant sign is shining into their bedroom? Same thing with parking lot lights. Making sure that they face down and away from the residential is an important component, and making sure that these uses interact. Walkways, creating elevation, even if it's kind of fake, in order to create different planes, is something that can separate uses as well, but also tie them together. And so we're looking at these sort of half measures that separate things from a conceptual standpoint, but also integrate them from a practical standpoint, wherein you can actually use the different components of a mixed-use type development. And so, looking at a macro view on this is how does this site serve the Gaithersburg market? And one of the easiest solutions and the necessary solution, given the age of the buildings and the inventory, is to refresh that. Create new options for office tenants with expiring leases. Create new options for people living in Gaithersburg. Create a second or third location for a retailer that's already been in the market, and give them the opportunity to integrate new space plans that they've designed. Or break free from the constraints of a previous building design. So you've got a good opportunity there just with what you have in the marketplace without having to bring anything else in. And with the shrinking retail and office worlds, I think that makes a lot of sense. It gives greater options to tenants as far as floor plates are concerned. Can an office user be on an accordion lease in a new space that it otherwise couldn't do in a traditional space? How do those clawback provisions come in from a management standpoint? Are essentially an amenity that you can grant to your tenants as far as flexibility on leasing space. You also have the ability to have, let's say, an office user who has 10 to 20 new hires a year. You can have multiple tenancy arrangements with them where they do a block lease on 10 to 20 multifamily units in addition to their office space. And so not only do you get a bit of a twofer there, but you're able to serve that office customer with essentially on-site labor, which is an important thing. Creating a sense of place is the theme that I think that development is moving towards, and allowing these uses to cooperate and work together does create a sense of a place. It creates a city center, if you will, and something where you can do everything you need or want to do, and there's an identity associated with it. Taking back ubiquity has been a popular rallying cry, and developing something that does that, particularly in this was gives you that opportunity. That new point of destination is what will drive new tenants once you've vultured as many as you can from the surrounding areas. And so when we look at a recommendation, a mixed-use development with office, retail, and residential components, I think that there's a strong possibility for hospitality and medical. The need for soft spaces and recreational areas. They don't necessarily make you money as a developer, but they're becoming a requirement as far as tenant needs are concerned. And so creating those little coves of just sitting space, creating an area around maybe public art, creating something that doesn't necessarily have a financial benefit, but has an aesthetic benefit to the development, I think is something that separates these sense of place ideas from a more traditional or ubiquitous style of development. Bringing in hospitality, I think, is a good opportunity here. It's going to be a small boutique type hotel. Most of the surrounding hotels are cheap. They're $90 to $120 a night. If you did a lifestyle or just small footprint hotel, maybe 60 to 80 keys, that I think has an opportunity on this parcel, as well as some medical use, what I call retail medical, where it's in and out. Same day service, either concierge care, or perhaps even an urgent care, something like that, or just private practice. Folks that have either been pushed out of hospital systems, and don't want to play by the hospital system's rules and have their own practice. I think that there's going to be more and more of a push for that moving forward in the medical arena. Security is going to be the biggest obstacle on a project like this, making sure that you provide adequate security at different levels. Obviously, the residential component is going to require greater and more accessible security than, say, the retail folks. The retail folks are likely going to close at 10 o'clock at night and won't be there at night. So their need for security is more during the day. The residential and even office is more for the night. The exposure of this site with its feeling of centrality, I think gives you the ability to make anything you do seem larger than it really is. And so I think that's something that needs to be taken advantage of on a new development, making it feel big, feel like it brings you in. And that is something that this site has the capability of doing, whereas many others just don't have that luxury. So from this case study, I think that the key takeaways are to create an identity on the property, make it something where multiple people can glean something from it, and it serves their purpose either as a retailer or as an office tenant or as a place to live. And so you want to create something that people either aspire to, or that already defines what they do. Allowing users and uses to commingle creates a very interesting sense of place, and not prohibiting that, but encouraging it and blurring the lines between what is residential, what is office, what is retail, what is medical, what is hospitality. I think helps create that identity. The site's benefits of traffic, of minimal topography changes, and of ability for exposure, I think can all be utilized to the benefit of a new development, and making sure that those don't go unnoticed or unrequited as far as moving forward is concerned. I think you can be aggressive with this site, and I think you have to be aggressive with this site. Going after existing tenants in the marketplace is one way to curb the opportunity gap in retail, one way to curb the lack of need for traditional office space. Going after as many people as you can locally, and then using that critical mass to drive either point of destination users. One thing I haven't mentioned is education, and I think education, whether it be a for-profit university or a specialized trade school, I think that there are multiple users like that which could work within a development like this, and even large footprint office users like call centers and things like that. There's a space for them in a development like this. And so, based on that analysis and based on the way that we're looking at this property, I think there are a multitude of uses, and being aggressive on the front end will certainly pay dividends on the background, and give the ability to serve multiple markets within the Gaithersburg trade area. I hope that you guys have enjoyed this. I'm sorry it went a little bit long, but I look forward to your comments, and thank you so much.